Hello and welcome back to She's in Focus, the podcast dedicated to inspiring and empowering female filmmakers and videographers from all walks of life and on every step of their creative journey. I'm your host, Kel Grant, an aspiring filmmaker from New Jersey who's just trying to turn my passion into something more and connect with amazing women who have the same passion for video. One of those being Olympia Okonmah, a director who graduated from film school last year, yes, during the pandemic. She has a unique journey to share today because her education in film was conducted completely online, but she's managed to work on various indie sets and bigger productions with names like the NBA, Prime Video, and yes, you heard me correctly, Netflix. She's here to spill all the tea today. Olympia, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm so excited to hear about your film school experience because a lot of the guests I've had on the podcast have gone through like a video production program, maybe at a university, or have just been self-taught in all of their film skills. So I'm very interested to hear your film school experience. What school or program did you attend for film school?
So I went to Toronto Film School, and to make a complicated story less complicated, I started off in a film production program that got changed to a video production program halfway through. So
Okay.
I have both, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome. So what informed your decision to go to film school?
I don't know if people are gonna love this answer, but what if it's just kind of weird. So I was gonna be a lawyer. I'm Nigerian and I moved here 8 years ago. And I was gonna do the typical Nigerian thing. I was gonna be a lawyer. And even though I didn't really want to be, it made sense because that's just kind of what you do. And so I was like, okay, what kind of lawyers are there? And I Googled it and I was like, you know what? If I can work in the industry and be a writer or be whatever I want to be, then I'm going to be an entertainment lawyer because I might as well work with the industry in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, I didn't do good at law in university. Shocking when you're not passionate about it. So my parents were like, you know what, take a step back, take a break, which is very unorthodox for Nigerian parents to be like, you know what, we respect that you're not loving this, take a step back. So I did.
So I've heard, yeah.
And I spent some time just kind of brainstorming with my parents and with my boyfriend. And I was like, what am I good at? Because I know I can't go writing because everyone was like, you can't go be a writer. You're not going to make any money. And I was like, good God. Okay. And one day my boyfriend randomly said, Olympia, I think you should be a director. And it was like, there was this like box in an attic in my brain that no one ever touched. And no one ever thought to ask, what's in that box? And I was like, oh my God, why did I not realize that was like an actual career path? That's so weird. That makes sense. Oh my God. How? And so I immediately
the light bulb went off, of course.
Literally, like light bulbs. And so I opened Instagram the next day, and of course, because life and ads, immediately saw an ad for Toronto Film School on Instagram, and I was like, what are the odds? So they were like, inquire and everything. So I inquired, and I got a call right away saying, oh, hey, you want to come to our school? And after talking and getting through the application process with a lot of tears, because remember, I have no background in film. I never thought I could do this. So I did this application process, storyboarding and creating a story and all this stuff I had never done before. And I cried a bit because I was like, am I in over my head? This is a lot. But it wound up being one of the greatest things ever because when I submitted my application, I got all these calls from the school saying like that this was the most impressive one they'd ever seen, and could they use mine as the kind of benchmark for what future applicants should be doing if they ever ask what should this look like. And then they gave me a scholarship of sorts where they waived the international student fee for me, so I got to go as if I was Canadian. And I was like, oh my God. So that was kind of my whole journey, was simply my boyfriend saying you should do this, and then everything lined up and kind of proved him right that I should have been doing this the whole time.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story. So what was it about you that I guess your boyfriend, saw in you, or, what clicked in his brain where he was like, this is something you need to explore? Was it a certain characteristic that you had? Was this like a certain interest that you've always had? What was that?
Yeah, so I think it's just a little weird, quirky things about me. I've always been into writing. It's been the weirdest thing. And the really good thing is, even though my parents never loved the idea of me being a writer, like an author, they also never stifled my talent for writing, because sometimes I would just walk into a room with strangers. My parents would be like, "My daughter's a writer," and it's like, "Oh, yes, I am." Now I have to like write an essay for everyone here. So
Right.
I always had that, right? I always had everyone backing me and being like, Olympia's a fantastic writer. But then there was always this movie thing that just kind of stuck out, which I would spend copious amounts of time like watching movies and TV, from the good to the bad to the ugly. I have seen some movies that, yo, but I gave them all more than one benefit of the doubt. I would keep on watching them, and it was never about, is this a good movie by everyone's standard? I never thought that. I just kind of waited for this feeling. And if that movie made me feel a good way, even if it was a movie by a really random celebrity who shouldn't be acting, or something by like James Cameron, if it made me feel something, that feeling, I could ride that for ever. I'm still writing it. Wow. There's still certain ways I feel when I watch Twilight that like people are like, "Oh my god, Twilight, you're a filmmaker." Girl, so like I don't care. I felt like I wanted to be in this world. I understood that escape art of wanting to have this foreign thing around you. I always wanted to be able to understand everyone's life that I saw. So he saw that empathy in me, that need to like be someone else for a second. And it was so strong with film. And I had this habit of, in Nigeria, going to the movie theater by myself, and I would sit alone in an empty theater, and I watched Eclipse 8 times, like alone in a theater, way beyond the time when everyone was done with it. And I would sit and I would watch the end of it, and I would just watch the credits, and I didn't know why I was doing it, which is really weird. I did it every time for no reason. I didn't remember anyone's names. I didn't know what any of the words meant. I was like, yeah, okay, the best boy was this, and the colorist was this. And I'm like, okay, I have now truly finished the movie. Let's go. So when he kind of put all that together about me and saw how creative I was, and like I have lines memorized from almost all the movies I've ever watched. I'm like one of those weird ones. So my friends used to have me. They used to be like, because I went to boarding school for 6 years in Nigeria, so we didn't have phones. We could only watch TV on weekends. So when they got bored in the middle of the day, they'd be like, "Okay, Olympia, okay, pick a movie and do it." They never said tell us about it. They always said do it. And I would literally just stand in the middle of a room with like 30 girls around me, and I'd be like, "Okay, the movie is Treasure Planet. The first scene is thus." And I would just kind of go off, and I'm acting everyone's part, and like I would get so upset if I missed a scene. I'm like, okay, so you know how I said this guy did this? Okay, so here's what happened immediately after that, because I forgot. And like I make sure like I play it out like that. So it's little weird things like that about me that made him like, you need to take everything you know and use it to create for other people, so they can feel everything you feel when you watch movies, because people are not feeling that anymore. And I was like, yes sir, let's do it.
Yeah you have such a personal connection to the movies that you watch, and like that's exactly, I feel like the purpose of movies is to impact your audience on an emotional level. And like for you to, like you were saying, ride that high, that must be like one of the most amazing feelings for you. But I could imagine going into film school without having like a technical background in film, but still having this passion. What was that like for you? Were you really nervous starting the program? Were you were having all these self-doubts, or were you like, I have a passion for this, we're just going to go for it?
To be honest, the first thing I did was curse my dad, because like I think it was the year before I moved to Canada, we did this trip, and we did the UK, the States, and then Canada. And I didn't know that he was bringing me here to kind of show me that I should move here, which was very cheeky of him. But when we were in one of the places, he took us to Best Buy, me and my little sister and my cousin, and we're looking around, and I saw a little camcorder, and I was like, "Can I get one, please?" And my dad's like, "No, because everything I buy you, you lose," which is fair. I did. But like, I was like, come on, like this is so random. I haven't asked for anything this weird. Like, I don't even have an Xbox. I don't have any of those weird gadgets. Like, please. And he's like, "Nope, absolutely not. I have seen no reason for you to have this." And I'm like, you know what? whatever. So imagine me going to film school and I'm like, I don't have a camcorder because of my father. And I kind of was like, But honestly, right. Otherwise, I was so fueled with the passion, and I was like, this has to go well. And I have no idea what it's going to look like. And I have this habit of, I refuse to prepare for certain situations, because you can do that to a fault sometimes. So,
of course,
like even for this podcast, for example, I knew I was going to do this, and there's this part of me, this very type A part, who wants to like make sure like I have everything written down, make sure I know what I'm saying. But then there's this other part of me that's so much stronger that is like, girl, when you walk into this room, you're going to command it with a ferociousness that is unparalleled. So you need to trust that other person in you and let it go. And I always call it my autopilot. And I always tell everyone, I'm like, y'all, when I need to talk about autopilot, I don't know what I'm saying, and I'll probably remember it later, but that is fine. So I went into film school on autopilot, and I was like, whatever happens right now, it's going to happen. And it was really hard because I did it online. So I actually didn't have any film resources. I didn't have any of the equipment. I wasn't allowed to go to the school and use the stuff that everyone else in my program was getting to use. I couldn't use any of the gear. I couldn't even use anyone like on my sets if I ever needed to make a movie. I was just like in like Zoom classes basically, and they're like, make a film, but with no camera. So I wound up buying all my equipment myself from camera stores around and Best Buy and Amazon, and it was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of money has gone into me doing that. But one thing I will say, like if anyone takes anything from this podcast, is that was probably one of the best things I think anyone, like especially me, could have done during film school, because I realized I like to look at things very glass half full. And if I had been in film school and I had used all the resources they had, it would have spoiled me to a certain degree, because you're looking at expensive cameras. You're looking at like the Sony F6 and stuff like that, and that's what you're using. And then you come out and you have to rely on the school's resources and your people around you in the school giving you like shooting space, and you come out and no one cares. But I had to learn from my very first day that you need your own stuff. You need your own gear. You need to learn how to talk to people and get your own space. You need to find out how to hire people, figure out who to pay, how to pay them. Like I had to learn that with no class to teach me that. And with my program being changed to video production and the priority was no longer film, halfway through it was like, okay, so now I have to be in a video production program, which is not my passion, and still figure out film. So I tried to riot and go to war with the school, but they didn't care. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm a straight A student. I'm on the honor roll. Let's just ace this program. But I'm gonna keep on working in film and I'm gonna kill it. So I like made a short film when no one asked me to. I like did all this other stuff that no one asked me to do. And I was like, if you keep going beyond what anyone asks you, eventually people will listen to you. So that's just kind of what I did.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great mentality to have, because I don't know if I were in that situation. I feel like I would have just given up if my path was seemingly like, if I left it up to the powers that be to change my course, I think I would have just thrown in the towel and said, this isn't my passion. This isn't what I want to do. I really commend you for sticking with it and sticking through it and finding opportunities on your own and saying, you know, they're not going to do it for me. I'm going to have to make this work myself. I really, really admire that about your story. So what changed specifically about the program? Were there no more, I guess there were no more like directing classes, producing classes? Was it strictly about like the technical skills that you need operating a camera? How did your program change?
I honestly wish that they had explained that to me. That is one question that I have never had an answer to, because it happened like all in one fell swoop. It happened a year later. And when I say like, I was, if you ask my parents, everyone will say this, in school, I was what you call very mediocre. It was almost upsetting. It was like, okay, how are you so middle of the road? Like, how is it never like wavering? And my parents were so concerned. And so they brought me here and made me like redo the last bit of high school, even though I'd already graduated and all this stuff, just to get me on the right path, right? Mm-hmm. And so I get to film school and I made this deal with my parents, because Nigerian parents are so giving. They have this thing where it's very different from the Western part of the world, where it's like, oh, move out when you're 18, pave your own way. No, Nigerian parents are like, stay with me as long as you need to. I am here for you. When you feel ready to go, I will let you go. you don't need to ever worry about anything. When I ever thought I should worry about money, my parents were like, no, you're not allowed to worry about money. Do you have a roof over your head? Yes. Do you have food to eat? Yes. Have you ever wanted more toys than you have? Yes, but that's on you. That's because you're greedy. So no. So that I had to go to my parents at the start of film school, and I had to be like, hey, I don't think you guys should pay for this. I think I should pay for it, because the thing about people paying for the stuff that you're doing is you now owe it to them to do this. And I didn't want to owe this to anybody but myself, because I needed to prove to myself that this was something I could do. So I had to get a part-time job, and I had to do this online. So I was paying for school monthly, so I never had to find myself in debt, because I never wanted to start my future with any kind of debt holding me back, so that I had to like take on jobs that I didn't want to while like pursuing my passion, right? So I figured out a monthly plan with them and everything. So I'm so invested in this program. I am sitting every day at my desk in my room studying like no one should be studying. I am like a type A version of myself I've never understood. I didn't even know I was capable of working that hard. So when I was on the honor roll, obviously I started writing that high. I'm like, keep doing this. You're amazing. They love you. Keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the first year, I just got an email saying, hey, your production is now switching to video production. Your course is switching to video production, which means we're going to be doing more of like selling yourself on YouTube, how to be a YouTuber, how to be a like commercial person. Oh. And so I was like, okay. So there was no more attention paid to filmmaking. It was all about commercializing yourself, selling your brand. Literally, like, here's how to make your website, blah, 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 which is great stuff after I've learned how to be a director. But I had only taken one directing course, and it was not enough. It was just me reading a bunch of books and watching a bunch of old movies. So I was like, okay, I've read the books. How do I do it? And before I could figure out how to do it, they had changed it. And I talked to everyone I could. I emailed everyone. I emailed the director of the school. I'm like, hey, what is going on? So he was like, I don't know what to tell you. It's just what it is. Again, luckily, I'm kind of a glass half full person. I was like, look, you have to give me something. I cannot sit back and just take weird courses that have nothing to do with me. So I want to be a filmmaker. And right now I have no money. So I need to learn how to make these movies myself without a crew. And you haven't taught me how to use a camera. And I'm also not on campus, so I can't even touch a camera you have. Please let me take a photography course so that I understand how to operate a camera, because if I can take a photo, I can take a video, please. And he was like, you know what? That's a fair negotiation. I'll let you in the photography course. So I did the photography course, bought my camera, learned everything I could about photography so that I could start making movies. And then I had to do all the other stuff. So it was kind of like, now I'm distracted because I have to focus on video production while I'm shooting movies. So I quit my job working retail, and I went to go work at a camera store instead. And I had to learn everything I could about cameras from there. And by selling cameras and selling this experience of what every camera stood for, what it represented, what its strengths and weaknesses were, I was also teaching myself all of that. So in order to be great at this, I had to be a great salesperson. And by doing that, people were recognizing at my work. And so filmmakers were coming up to me and they were giving me advice or telling me where to get rental gear or giving me opportunities to like shoot stuff for them, which was amazing. So I got a lot of jobs shooting for people based on new experience. And I think I killed it. Like they said, I did a really good job. So that's great. But that's kind of what had to happen, because with no answers to my questions, I just kind of had to blindly continue the rest of it, I guess.
Yeah. So what would you say you got out of film school? Because it sounds like a lot of this, you were in charge of your own kind of path here. You were the one that created your own opportunities. Do you regret going to film school at all? Do you think that you could have done it better on your own? Because it feels like you kind of had to do that anyway.
I try not to regret it, because I am very strongly of the mindset that everything does happen for a reason, and it's very hard to realize what the reason is when it's a bad thing. But I'm a very introspective and retrospective person, so, and I also like to project forward. So I like to see how this is going to play out in the big picture in my life. When I look back, what is the value this is going to have had when I was a kid? So I started doing that right as soon as it happened. Obviously, I pulled the Beyonce thing, give myself 24 to 48 hours to be upset and rant with everyone. And then I'm like, okay, we can only be upset for so long. Things need to get done. So I when I look at my film school experience, even though it didn't necessarily do much for me, it gave me my first opportunity. I got to, because I was doing so well in school, they let me work on a fashion show, which was my first exposure to a production of sorts. It was not a film production, but it was a production. And they also let me go to a small award show, like within Ontario. So I got to like shadow one of the camera operators there, and I got to meet one of the directors who was teaching me. And so it was just kind of like my first look at what this looks like. And I learned a lot being on those two productions. I learned that people in film schools, if they're going to create an online program, which is very different for film, there have to be a number of things accommodated for, which I told the school. It's first of all the culture. Kids are kids. They can be toxic, and the priorities are upside down a lot of the time, and not a lot of people can be like, this is why I'm here. So being the only, or maybe one of two online film students that would be chosen for such an opportunity, there would be maybe 6 or 7 from campus that were chosen. And there was an obvious divide. And I don't mean like a cute obvious divide, like the way that it is now where everyone's trying to be polite. I mean, we're watching the movie Mean Girls. Like, they are not talking to the kids that are from online, because they're like, what are you even doing here? Right? They have a different attitude. They have that stereotypical grandiose filmmaker attitude you see in TV that's like, no filmmakers like that. Who's actually that cocky? You haven't done anything. You're in school. Like, you cannot have a Spielberg attitude and zero Spielberg on your shoulders. Like, how is that happening? And yet you go in and you see exactly that. So I was watching that and I was like, that's very interesting. Because are they intimidated by me? I'm online. You have more resources than I do. So for you to have the level of bitterness you do is really sad, because I can only imagine that if I was in their shoes, I'd be like, oh my God, how can I help you every way I can? Because we're both here, we're both paying tuition. Maybe I can like help you and be on your productions and stuff like that. But that's just me, right? So I decided to not take that so in such a salty way. I just have figured out, like, I'm gonna have my production company when I feel like I'm comfortable in my directing career enough to create my own company, and I know what its name is going to be, and I know what it's going to stand for. And little things like this that I've been through, I've just kind of archived, and I'm going to try to deal with that when my company comes to play. Maybe it's no longer the fact that you went to film school that is going to be the basis of you getting hired in my company. It's going to be based on your passion. It's going to be, how hard can you work? Can you see eye to eye with me? Because I may run a company, but I need everyone from my janitor to me to be on the same page. I need anyone that I call on to be able to step up to the plate. So you can pretend that you're going to be a great filmmaker, but that's not my concern. What matters is that you are so passionate about this that you don't feel the need to be venomous to everyone around you in order to get there, because this is not a track team. This is soccer. Like, without me and you, this movie can't work. If the janitor wasn't here, this couldn't work, because this place would not be clean. So we can't treat anyone with any less respect than we want. So that's kind of what I've been learning. And that's what film school taught me, is they're not teaching you respect. They're teaching you, hurry up, struggle, get where you want to be, step whenever you have to. And it's like, it's a work of art. Where are you running to? Take your time and make this beautiful, instead of speeding up and making this a horrible experience for everyone who worked on it. Because your movie could win an Oscar, but if it was a toxic set, then whose fault is that? Is it the film schools that raise these kids? Is it the sets that are like letting them get away with things? Where is the problem, right? So that's where the whole reforming Hollywood thing comes into my kind of aspirations in life, you know?
Yeah, of course. Do you think that like toxic kind of film school atmosphere that you experienced, do you think that reflects the industry as it stands now as a whole once you leave film school?
I really think it does. I think that life is very movie-esque if people really look hard enough. The stereotypes aren't being created by the movies, they're just emulating us. Because when you see those kids who are like, you know, pretending that they're amazing directors already, even though they've done 0.5 things, they come out with this ego that is unparalleled, right? And they think they deserve to be in every room, and they have a really strong attitude and blah blah blah, I'm better than everyone, don't talk to me, I know better than you do. And they may be that way at first on their little film sets and their little like shorts, but when they go to bigger sets, they still have that attitude. Now they're part of a team of people that have that same attitude. They're like, ha, we get to work on big sets, the rest of you don't. What did you do after film school? Nothing. Well, I worked on Jurassic Park. Okay, calm down. Like, actually calm down. So my thing is, it is feeding through, because the longer we're tolerating that attitude, the longer it carries on, and then it becomes no longer a phase but a problem, because now we're making these children feel like they get to just stomp and demand until they get what they want, because in their minds, filmmakers and people on filmmakers teams have to be like that cocky, confident, threatening. And it's like, it's a movie. If I want anyone to feel any sense of joy watching this, they need to see there was joy in making it. It's the way you can taste when like food was made with love. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what a film should be. But they're not teaching that you should make a film with love. They're teaching you should make it with as many resources as possible, as many people as possible, as much money as possible. And so that's what everyone's caring about, is the things being used to make it, the time, energy. They're just like, do. And if you're not overworking yourself, you're not working at all. Why not just be on set for 17 hours? We could just make this movie last longer. I'm sorry. I know money is a crazy thing. I know you have to plan things out, but someone set that standard. And if no one fixes the standard, it's going to continue to be that. People should not be in inhumane conditions because we are shooting a scene of a movie. That is unreal to me. It is absolutely insane, and there's no reason for that. Like, standing all day when only like 20 people need to be standing is upsetting, because if people are not at their top performance, then how on earth is this movie going to look great? Mistakes are going to start happening, So I feel like that's the kind of stuff that they're learning in film school, is never sit down, never let anyone see you sit down, that kind of stuff. Never rest, never take a second to yourself. Don't do this. You should know before they ask you. People are learning. People are malleable. We're evolving. If we can't ask questions to get help because we're scared of authority figures, we're going to continue to make mistakes. And then we become experienced people who are continually making mistakes that people are letting let slide. So now it's like a problem. So that's why I think film school is really feeding into a lot of the culture of full-blown movie sets now. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the opportunity of working with a few NYU students on their films. And I noticed kind of an overall sense of entitlement. So I had the opportunity of being a first AD on this short film that I worked on, and the director was so I guess I couldn't tell if it was in film school they weren't teaching the directing skills that you actually need, or this perception that being a director means you're the boss, what you say goes. You know what I mean? Like, I was on set, and this director was so focused on getting the shot list exactly perfect that he completely disregarded the talent. We were filming, it was about a troll that lived under a bridge, and we were filming literally in under a bridge in a gross kind of swampy area. This woman, the talent, is rolling around in dirt, and this director, instead of checking in on the talent, hey, do you need to take 5? Hey, I see you scraped your knee while you were rolling around in the dirt there. Do you want us to take care of that? And then we can, take 5 and then we'll come back and shoot. He was just so cutthroat in the fact that it needed to be done in his time, in the way that he wanted, with his vision, that he wasn't taking care of his people on set. And it really led me to believe, what are they actually teaching students in film school? What was it that you learned in your directing class? Do you feel like you left that class with tips that'll actually help you in directing in the real world?
I am obsessed with that question. And I also have something I want to address about what you said about that experience. But yeah, what I learned in directing class is that I'm really good at reading, but I've known that since I was a kid. So I learned how to read a lot of books. I read everything about directing, and I read about every director, and they made me watch so many movies. And I'm like, okay. So I am one to take in information. Like my boyfriend says, I tend to download information and I don't process it until much later. So I took the whole term as just downloading, and I was doing everything that was necessary and participating as was necessary. But looking back at it now, it's I was taught what everyone else did. I wasn't taught how to be. I was taught how to imitate, and I was given a certain pool of people to imitate. Now, don't even get me started on the fact that these are all white men.
I was just going to say.
I don't even want to think about it because I'm gonna get upset. But
right.
like, I was taught how to imitate and who to imitate, right? And that's fine. Like, and everyone's like, you haven't watched the classics, you're in film, and I'm like, how dare you tell me that in order for me to be here, I should have watched what a bunch of dudes did back in the day. I'm really happy they did it, but if they weren't focused on what they were doing, they couldn't have done it. They weren't looking at everyone behind them telling them what to do. They were like, I feel like this now and I'm gonna do this now. So why are we all looking at them to tell us how to now? So I'm never, like, there are some classics that I will never see, not because I don't like them, but because I had a period in my life where I had to watch those movies, and that was in directing class, and I watched them. But now I get to decide how this turns out. I get to decide what version of Hollywood I want to live in. It's not going to be the version in the 50s or the 60s or whenever the heck everyone was doing their thing. That was its own time. Okay, things are in black and white, whatever. But now I'm like, I don't have the time. So directing didn't teach me anything. It just taught me that, like, people handle things differently. Congratulations. That's not brand new information. Good for you. Right. You shot this way. You shot this way. Maybe I'll borrow a concept from what you did, but I will not make my whole movie the way you did. And to add to, or to comment on what you said about what you worked on, I think that's really where it also becomes problematic in the industry, because if in school, like, they're just teaching you how to be in power and not how to be a director, the industry is doing the same thing, right? They're right now it's so hard to want to be a director. Like, it takes every ounce of fiber in my core to source the strength to do this every day. Because when you step outside and you tell someone on a set, I want to be a director, they're like, oh, okay, so are you in the Directors Guild? And I'm like, I'm on my way to it. I'm a apprentice, as it were, and I'm getting my days. But the really interesting thing that I guess I haven't really said in public is that I don't need to be there. It'll be cool to be part of the union. It will. And the first time I didn't get in Ontario, I literally wept, and it was really sad. But it's just like, I don't, everyone says to me now, okay, so are you going to go the AD route? Because that's the only way you can go. You have to join the union, become a PA, then become a TAD, a trainee assistant director, then a third, then a second, then a first, and then maybe someone will let you direct an episode of a show, and eventually you'll get to direct your own movie. And the laugh that happens within me when they say that is rapturous, because I'm like, so you're telling me that I should spend the next how many years doing that? Because I will be 50 come my first movie. Like, when I did my first my first union interview, I made sure I took note of everyone in the room. I was like, okay, so what are all your roles? And they were like, oh, I'm a second, I'm a third, I'm a second, I'm a second. How long? 20 years, 25, 15, 30. Excuse me? I don't have 25 years to be an AD. And I don't see how that is a career that leads me to be a director, because, first of all, how many ADs are successful directors now? I don't, like, when you list the great directors, I don't know which one of them was an AD, for one thing. That's my main thing. But secondly, an AD needs a fully different skill set from a director. And why they're telling you to go be this person and then hopefully you become this person is beyond me, because being a director is not taught. That's one thing I learned in film school. You can't teach me this skill. This is in my heart. It's in my being. I was programmed to be a director. The greats were programmed to be directors, or they threw big enough tantrums that someone gave them money and said, go direct this movie, and they said, yay. So that's fine. But I don't think you can teach someone to love directing, because I think to be a great director, you have to love it. You have to be a leader. And people that are directors now are managers. They're just learning how to, like, command a group of people. That's not what leadership is. Leadership is, I am willing to, if we all need to push this car up a hill for this shot, I am down here pushing this with you. I am not back there on my phone in my chair with my name on it, watching my whole team do it. That's not leadership. That is just management. And that's not who you should be as a director. So if you think you can sit here and be like, do this, do this, do this, do this, I don't care if you're sick, that's wild to me, because your passion isn't flowing through. People aren't going to work with you anymore. And if they can't say your set was the best place to work, what can they say? My movie can be trash, but if I made everyone I worked with happy, I'm gonna keep making more movies because they will always be in my corner. But I could have $1 million idea that no one will want to work on with me because I was a nightmare to work with the last time. So like, how is no one getting this? We're literally supposed to be these self-sufficient beings, humanity, and yet somehow we have this pack mentality where we just think that whatever someone said 30 years ago should simply go. And I'm like, that's okay with you. I'm never going to be that person. Like, the film industry is very flawed in that regard, I really think.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And you're not saying that there's no value in learning what an AD does or placing value on that role, because I do think to be a good director, you have to understand what every person on your set, what their job is, how they feel about it, what the expectation is. Like, you have to understand that. I totally agree. But like you were saying, to spend 10 plus years in a role that has nothing to do with what you actually want to do and doesn't even call on the skills to be able to, like, if you're a first AD, okay, maybe you can project manage, right? Maybe you're good at keeping to a schedule. You can do that. But you're not working like directly with the people. That's the thing. Directing is all about the relationships that you're cultivating, right? Because you have to cultivate that in order to let your vision come through on the screen and to connect with your actors. So what is it that you like about directing? Is it that kind of relationship building leadership part of it?
I think that, and to agree with you, my motto is, if I don't know the role of everyone on my set, then I'm not doing a good enough job. And that's what I see this phase of my life as. Because right now, I am a director. I have directed. I got into a film festival. It was a great experience. And that was all I needed to tell me, you can do this. Like, this is what your soul is built to do. I have never felt more myself than in that moment. But I also need to take a step back because I couldn't just keep doing that. I needed to know every role and not just know it by studying it, because I don't work like that. I needed to know it by working it. So that's why I got my camera and stuff. I am physically capable of shooting my own movie right now with all of my gear because I bought all the gear I could possibly need to shoot something by myself. So I know what demands I will have of my cinematographer and what demands I'll have of my lighting crew. I know my understanding of sound, and I know how far to push my sound design team. And I have worked on the AD team on the Ryan Reynolds movie for Netflix, and that was its own thing where I had to understand the tasking challenge of being an AD, because they allowed me to really step into their shoes for every day. And now I'm a cast assistant, and it's also teaching me how assistant life is like, and when to push and when not to push, and when to be understanding and when it's like, okay, I have certain demands. So I take every opportunity as that, because if I can't work these intricate, seemingly obsolete like positions, I will never understand when I'm pushing people beyond their limit. Like, humans are humans. You need to know when they're going to be okay and when they're not, because people are not just here to be bossed around. So my wanting to be a director, this all is fueling that, because I think the meaning of being a director has so become flawed over time. I feel like what I'm seeing a lot of on set is, yeah, there is a lot of sitting, like just sitting in your chair and waiting for everyone else to figure it out for you. And what I've heard a lot is, directors deal with the main talent and the AD deals with the background. You know, they deal with everything else in the scene, background actors and all the other stuff happening, so the director can focus on the main talent. I don't know that it needs to be that. I think that directing is, I want the scene to go a certain way, from my main actor to the person whose job it is to run across the street behind them. And I'm not going to take that away from my AD, but that is just as important to me. And I feel like I shouldn't be sitting. I feel like I should be orchestrating this. This is a beautiful symphony of things happening. And I want it to always feel that way. I want my background actors to feel just as comfortable as my main actors. I don't need that extra preferential treatment to be happening, that like, don't talk to me, I'm too busy. I'm here to be doing this movie with you, and you deserve 100% of my attention right now. If my attention is ever divided, then it can only be because I'm planning something for this movie that may not be happening right now. But it shouldn't be because I'm trying to secure this deal from here and this from here. The world will wait. Like, everyone is running around as if people will not pause if you ask them to, so they can hold on. And if that movie I'm trying to plan down the road can't hold on for me to shoot my current movie, then I'll create a different one, because that's the beauty of being a writer-director. I don't have to buy your movie idea. I can just make my own. But I only make my own by being open-minded, and I have to stop looking at everyone else and stop looking at what everyone else has done, what they're doing, stop making so many sequels. I cannot understand the lack of human imagination going on right now where every movie is a sequel. I don't know what's happening, because I can come up with 50 film ideas a day, so I don't know how no one else can. I don't know what's going on there. So I'm just like, people just need to refocus and change their priorities. So I want to direct so I can be part of my team and be part of making that art, not just some removed, like, oh yes, so I want you to paint this way, and I want you to use this brush for this stroke. Absolutely not. I'm gonna grab that brush from you and you're gonna show me how to do it. Make me know how I can make this better. Everyone's feedback is necessary so that I can help make this better, because I am simply helping this project progress. I am not the driving force for its progression. Without anyone else here, I couldn't do this for myself, you know? So that's why I want to be a director, to reinforce that belief. And it's going to be very hard to do because people have some very, very nasty habits right now in film that I need to eject from them as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Can we just take a step back real quick and I guess define directing for our audience? Because I feel like sometimes, I mean, for me personally too, I think I've conflated the role of a producer or the role of an AD with that of a director based on my experiences on set. So if you could just define for myself and our audience what the role of a director is right now, you know, not the one that you envision it to be, but what it is in Hollywood in this moment.
So right now, stepping onto a set, if you had 3 people in front of you, the director, AD, and the producer would be introduced to me as the person who is essentially like, they're controlling the money in some way, shape, or form. There's multiple different producers, but this person is making sure that we are working with our money properly. We are not running over time, all of that, because they have to deal with it if that ever happens, and they shouldn't have to deal with that. We should be living by the schedule. The AD is creating that schedule, so it is their job to make sure we're following it so the producer doesn't have to deal with paying for an extra day and all that stuff. So the AD is taking care of the background, they're taking care of the crew, they are making sure everything is moving smoothly so the director can focus on their vision. And then the director is the visionary. He has read the script and he has to interpret, or she, wow, it's happening. I'm literally saying he as if it's belongs to a man. Like, I'm not a director. The director has to make sure the vision comes to life properly based on a lot of prior work and pre-production and storyboarding and shot listing. They have seen the script and they have said, this is how I envision it looking, and people have said, yes, we want to go with your vision. And so this director is making sure their vision translates to screen by communicating with the whole team. I want it to be shot this way. I want the sound to be this way. I want the background to move this way or that way. And then everyone else just runs around to make sure that happens so the director can have what they want on the screen in front of everyone. So, yeah.
So the director has a big responsibility. I mean, I feel like that was kind of obvious, but the way that you explained it, like, they have a lot of power on set. I mean, and in a lot of ways, if a film doesn't go the way it's supposed to, do you think that falls on the director's shoulders?
It does, because I mean, no one's going to be like, it was the lighting guy who made it trash. They're not, right? Like, they're going to say it's the director, because why didn't you, you know, make sure the lighting guy did it right? So it's going to fall on the director. And I think that's where the problem stems, is if you just have a vision, and you just like, make this vision happen, there are flaws to that logic, because we are not like demigods. You know, I can't make what you see real unless you really give me the materials to do so. So I feel like as a director, that's why it's important to know when you are pushing too far and when you're not pushing far enough, and also to know like what hills you're willing to die on and what things you have to sacrifice. I think that if I wanted a scene shot in this way that no one's ever shot before, I can't just go to my team and be like, okay, I want this scene you've never seen before, I want it to look like this, and walk away. No, I'm going to come to you prepped with vision and storyboards, and I'm going to show you inspo, and I may have to ask someone to literally do a graphic design of what I'm trying to ask you to do, right? We're going to work through, we're going to talk and power through. I can't just be like, here is a photo of what I want you to do. Please figure out how to make it happen. We're going to talk it through, because if I want to do this again, I'm going to have to explain this to someone again. I feel like they need to see it as a learning experience. Just like, I'm learning how to be better with every production, instead of just, I am the great puppeteer of this, and I just, you know, do dance when I ask you to dance. Like, I'm not just a puppeteer of what's going on. I need help. I am building a show with you. And so I think that's what needs to happen, because you do have the most power and it does all fall on you. And that should be enough responsibility that you're like, I need to have my hand in every pot that is being stirred right now, because if I can't vouch for what happened here, then what am I doing? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the biggest challenges that a director can face on set?
I think lack of communication can be a really big thing. I think especially when it comes to that fear aspect, when people are too scared to talk to you because you are the big bad boss of the set. Right. I feel like people may be too scared to tell you, and they may just like make it look like they did something. And so that is a pretty big struggle, because when you look at the product that you want and you see that like it's flimsy or not done properly, or it was all just done for eye service just so you could see, but not actually to its core, that's a very big challenge that I may not have seen a lot of the time, but I believe it'd be a big challenge. I think that I learned from working with Sean Levy on the Adam project. He mentored me a bit. Him and Josh McLaughlin, the first AD, they were my mentors. And Sean taught me something so important. He actually does something really interesting where he edits as he shoots, which is so amazing. So he's always on the phone with his editor. And yeah, he edits pretty much every day as he shoots. And the editor is like with him and he's like, here's everything we shot yesterday. And they'll make the entire scene they shot into the exact progression on a rough scale of what it's going to look like in final. Right. And so based on that and based on the actors' performances and whatever changes may have like been skipped over or adjustments, he'll look at all that and be like, okay, so this is what wound up happening yesterday as opposed to what was in the script. So based on that, we now have to recalibrate how the rest of this is going to go, instead of waiting until the end and being like, oh my God, what happened on this day and how could we not match it up? Right. So that is one of the most genius things I have seen the director do. And I've told him, and if I haven't, I hope he hears this, I'm going to borrow that technique. I'm going to do that. But I feel like that's a big challenge for a lot of directors, because your job is, you're one of the only people whose job is from the beginning to the end. You are there from pre-production to production and to post-production, right? You are there until the movie is out. You are editing in the room with your editor. Well, at least some people are. So you want to make sure that you can, like I said, vouch for every second of time. And because it may be a big set, you may not be able to see everything. So since that is a challenge, because you are one person, then it's important to deal with that challenge by editing on the go, because now you can account for things you didn't see and make up those differences later. If it means talking to a producer about getting another day to shoot, or having second unit shoot it, or having like whatever happen, or rewriting the script, which he had to do a few times. They fully had to rewrite some things because they're like, it's not going to flow with what we did. So him and Ryan had to go back and like rewrite some scenes, which is insane in the middle of a production. And then they had to relearn new lines and fix it, So I feel like that's a really big challenge that I've watched one great director really deal with in an expert level.
That's amazing. So tell me more about the project that with Ryan Reynolds project? And everything. Yeah.
The Adam project is great. I think it's coming out next year. I believe in 2022. It was really cool. It was I think everyone knew about it. It was Ryan put out this it was like an internship of sorts. It was a trainee program where he announced that he was going to fly 10 people to Vancouver and have them work on his movie. And I saw it again because of my boyfriend. I don't know what this boy is, but I literally can't let him go. I don't know if he's like a talisman or something. I'm just going to keep him. But basically, we were just like hanging out with my uncle, and then they started talking about how all these companies are hiring people that don't necessarily have like college degrees for their programs. And so I went on Google while they were talking because I spaced out and I simply didn't care. And I was like, what companies are doing this? And so I think I saw Tesla maybe, and I saw Google. I saw a lot of big companies, and I saw Netflix. And again, light bulb. How have I been in film for almost 3 years? And I never thought to look and see if Netflix was hiring. How is this happening? So instead of getting upset about the fact that I didn't have a common train of thought, I went and I typed in Netflix jobs in Canada. First thing that came up was the Ryan Reynolds thing, which I had never heard of at the time. And they had started accepting applications already, and it was 2 days left to go. And I was like, no way. I had 2 days to submit this thing, and that was that. So I told my boyfriend, I was like, don't tell anyone in the house. You're the only one who knows. And I ran downstairs, changed my shirt. It was a one-sided interview. And I just like read the questions, and I was like, okay. And then I answered, and I was like, okay, you know what? If I get it, I get it. And it was a long waiting period. I wound up working with Disney as a COVID monitor because I was almost certain I wasn't going to get the job. And I found out I got it about 2 weeks before they flew us out. So that was great. Only 10 of us were chosen of, they said, about 65,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
So that was insane. And then they flew us all out from,
when you started saying, Olympia, when you started saying that number, I was like, oh, out of 65 people. And then you followed up with 1,000? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was
good
insane.
For you.
I honestly remember I used to go to the Post because he posted it on his page, and then his company and the initiative group Effort Initiative have their own Instagram page where they also posted it. So I would go through his post, the group Effort Initiative post, and then go on Twitter and read all the comments every single day to see if ever anyone was like, I got in today, right? Which was nerve-wracking, and I shouldn't have done that. And then one day I went and I looked at it, and everyone was like, people were like, oh, I got my email today, I didn't get in, good luck to whoever did. And I was like, no. And I kept refreshing my email, and I wasn't getting anything. I'm like, oh my god, maybe they're staggering the rejection letters by region. I was like, oh my god. And then I got mine saying that I got an interview with the first AD, and I almost defecated myself. I was like, excuse me. What? And so that was just insane. And I got there, and oh my god, it was beautiful. He flew us to Vancouver. I'm from Ontario, and I've been to Vancouver before, but outside my window right now, it's just mountains. I've moved to Vancouver full time now because of the Adam Project, but it's just mountains outside my window, and I live in the middle of the city, basically the New York City, and it's just mountains everywhere. It's beautiful. And he took care of everything. When I say everything, I mean he got us apartments, and he got us rental cars, and he paid for our salaries out of his pocket. It was not the production's doing and everything. So he really went above and beyond in making sure we were taken care of, and we didn't have to deal with that financial aspect. He made sure we got stipends for our groceries every week, so we also didn't have to pay out of our actual salary to get that. So he was very caring in that regard. And the production was the biggest I'd ever been on. I mean, I just came off of a Disney one, right? And the Disney one was huge. It had hundreds of people on it. It was a big budget Disney movie. And this was bigger. This is the biggest budget Netflix movie that has ever been created in the history of time, right? So I was overwhelmed because the people on this movie are the biggest in the industry. I mean, I was overwhelmed. I mean, Josh McLaughlin worked on Titanic. He was the first AD on Titanic and the first AD on Avatar, right? That alone, that being my mentor was I didn't know how to cope. I was like, I don't even know what to ask you because how do I ask you these things? You know what I mean? And I've always fancied myself as the kind of person who doesn't have a favorite director because of everything I've told you, and also because I think it's very hard for people to make consistently good art. So I can't just say I'm a fangirl of this one director, regardless of if all the movies were good, because maybe they had one good movie. And the really good thing about Sean was I didn't know what Sean had done when I stepped onto the Adam Project. I didn't even know who he was. I had never heard his name before because I stay away from all of that. And I don't watch the Oscars anymore, anything. I'm just no, I don't want to know. It's all about me. I'm very selfish. So when I eventually looked up Sean after he had talked to me, because he's the kindest man I've ever met, I saw that he happened to have created all of our favorite movies growing up. Cheaper by the Dozen, Date Night, Just Married, what's it called? Night at the Museum, all of them. Those were his movies. And I was like, that's awesome. And he's responsible for Stranger Things. He's a producer of Stranger Things, and then he directs 2 episodes every season. And I'm like, Sean, I haven't not seen a movie you've done. I have loved all of them. You just happen to be the closest to a favorite, because even though it's not he's not winning crazy Oscars or anything, he made those movies that made me feel things, the ones I was talking about. And I'm like, that's crazy. So I really wanted to get to know him, and he took me under his wing very quickly, and oh my god, that was the best thing ever. He spent every day with me. I was with him by his side when I wasn't with Josh, and he walked me through his process, and he walked me through what his life is like, and he let me in on conversations I don't think I should have even been near as the child that I am at 24 at the time. I turned 25 when I was there, but I was like, I don't think I should be. This isn't appropriate. I don't think I should be here. But also in my heart, I knew I always expected to have a table at the room. But I mean, it wasn't just a bunch of kids at like a museum on a field trip. You know, that was one thing that me and the rest of the people in the program had to keep reminding ourselves, especially when we would feel a bit like, you know, broken down and everything. I would try to remind everyone that this is hard work. And
Yeah.
so there were days when there were opportunities I couldn't be part of. Like I think there was a weekend, which we had weekends off. So there was a weekend on a Saturday when they were doing a rehearsal at this new place we hadn't shot at, and I was just hearing whisperings about it, like in the wind. And I have major FOMO. I do not like to not be
Me
involved.
too, girl.
Like, so, like, as you can see, like, I had one mentor I gave myself to. I said, I don't want to just know the first AD. I love him. I want to also know the director. I want to be the only one with two. Like, I want to make sure I'm covered,
Yeah.
you know? So I heard that they were going, only all the big players were going to this rehearsal. And I was like, I'm gonna get in. I have to do it. And I was like, this is my movie moment. Let's go on a montage. Let's do it. So I ran around like a crazy person. I talked to everyone I needed to talk to. Blah blah blah. Asked this person, that person, this person, that person, until I eventually just got to Sean and Josh. And I was like, hey, can I come tomorrow? Like, this was a week of like me asking everyone. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of asking everyone but you. I'm just gonna ask you. And they're like, oh yeah, of course. And so I got there and I made this point of, because you know how they say, especially with Black people or just people of color, like you have to work twice as hard as they do to make half what they make, right? And I got there and people were standing, and that's fine. Like the people that were not the director and the first AD and the actors who needed to be moving and the major players were just kind of standing there. I'm just watching and taking notes, and I was like, that's good for you. I don't know when next I'll get to be in this room until I'm a director, so I'm gonna go closer because those people are way too far from me. So I went all the way to where they were and I stood under the ground. I found my way under them. So I wasn't in their way, but I could listen. And I just stayed there and I just like listened and just listened and took it all in and took it all in. And then when lunchtime came, I think my favorite part was everyone started eating, which of course, please eat. But I took my food and I put it away. I was the only one who didn't eat. And I stood at the table where the director, the first AD, and the producer were sitting, and they were planning this shot and they were eating. And I didn't even sit, I just stood in front of the table. And they're like, do you need anything? I was like, no, I'm going to listen though. And they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, I don't know when next I'm going to get to do this. You don't understand what it means that I'm here. So I'm not going to eat right now because when I go home, I can eat. Let's talk. So I just stood there and they were like, okay. And I noticed they would keep looking at me, just like surprised I was still standing there. I'm like, if you're here for 4 hours, I will be standing for 4 hours, right? This is what you view as excellence. I would love to sit, but I will be standing, you know? So like that's kind of the attitude I had the whole time, is you will not see me slacking at any point. And even though I don't have a defined job here, like this is not just a field trip to me. So I will start wiping down the art if you need me to. I will start mopping the floors if you need me to. I need you to know how much I want to be here. And so that was the attitude I had to have every day, because when people put you on their sets like that and you're not necessarily like invited, you know, by everyone, you're only invited by the powerful people, you have to prove that you're not just a legacy child who just was handpicked out of a lottery. So it was a lot of proving that to people in the industry who have a hard time understanding a lot of that and why diversity is necessary and why this child is here when everyone has 30 years of experience in their pockets. And I'm like, I can't fixate on that. So I'm just kind of gonna work as hard as I can so that when you do see me, you're not surprised that I'm where I am, you know? So
yeah, of course. That sounds like an amazing experience, and good for you for really like not taking that experience for granted. It sounds like every second that you were there, you were just continually proving that you deserved to be there. You know, you deserved more than a seat at the table. Did that mentality that you have, how was that kind of paid off for you? I know you personally, that probably is just a standard you have for yourself, but were there any like tangible kind of benefits from behaving that way on set? Did anybody notice you? Did anyone say anything to you?
Honestly, yes. I made some very amazing relationships while I was there. The connections I made were beyond connections, because I don't understand the concept of make connections, because that's so surface level. Okay, I said hi to you and shook your hand. Does that mean that you will now fund my movie? Absolutely not. So I don't understand the make your own connections. Okay. I have always believed in making relationships. I think that it's important that you are a ray of light to the people around you. Like they see the value you add when you step into the room. And so I tried to do that, and I think I made it work. I have a really great relationship with Sean still. I'm able to get in contact with Brian if and when I need to. But I think the most important was Josh and his sister Mary McLaughlin. Mary was the producer, so she is my gold standard for producer. Like, and Josh is my gold standard for an AD. Like, they are excellence at its core. And Mary and I got so close, and I told her so much about myself, and she actually inspired me to make a feature film about my life. And so did Mark Ruffalo, who was also in the movie, because Mark and I had a really good bond as well. And I told him a bit about my story, and he inspired me to also write about it. So I decided, writing is going to translate into a movie. So with the connection with Mary, I'm currently working on a feature right now, and there's a lot of things in the work, and she's still in contact with me, and we're just figuring out how this is going to work. But like, that's an amazing thing I got out of it, because I didn't just want to walk out and be like, oh yeah, I did this. It's like, now I've moved to Vancouver, so I'm only a few hours from LA. Like, I'm here. Yeah. So once I made that move to work on the Adam project, there was no going back for me. Like, I can only go upwards and make sure I'm looking in my rearview mirror to remember where I came from. But at this point, there is no going back to where I started. So it's just kind of, they propelled me here, and now it's every day. It's just writing, and I have like 5 or 6 shorts that I literally have in development right now while I'm working on this other movie, with the help from the producer intern who worked on the Adam project from the group that Ryan picked as well. So it's like a lot came out of it. Like, a lot of stuff came out, and I hope that, or I know in my heart that it's going to wind up being great. And even if it's not Oscar great, the Oscars are no longer my barometer for success anymore, because that system is its own upside down mess, and I cannot deal with an academy of God knows who telling me that what I did was not art. So I'm just going to focus on what I know, which is, if I can make as many people in the world feel a universal feeling every time they watch my movie, I have won at everything. Like, if you can keep on watching Mean Girls and you still feel the same every time, even though you're watching a bunch of Mean Girls just prance around in pink, I can make you do that with my movie every time you watch it, So you can go tell your friend, go watch it, and they're going to feel the same thing as you. The same way Get Out did. It's creepy to its core no matter how many times you watch it. Like, I'm going to pull a Jordan Peele on these people, and let's, take it from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can only go up from here. Your trajectory. I've gotten to know you for a little over an hour now, and there's no one more deserving in my opinion. You have such an amazing attitude. You're so fun to talk to, but I haven't come across anyone with the same kind of tenacious spirit that you have in such a kind of cutthroat industry. And I know that you're going to go far. And that I have this weird kind of thing about like how the universe is always like sending you signs. Like the fact that you were chosen to go to film school in the first place after not having any experience. Yeah. The fact that those people there said, this is the example that we're going to use for other people applying to enter the program. The fact that you were chosen out of 65,000 people for the Adam project. These are not coincidences. These are all because you worked so hard to get it. And it just really speaks to your spirit and your passion. And I'm just so excited to see where you take it and what you have coming up next.
Girl, same here. Same. I'm surprising myself with every passing second. So I'm just kind of like, I'm winging it, but things are working, so it's fine.
Awesome. So we're coming up at the end of the show here. We'll have to have you back on to talk about, all the other exciting projects you've worked on and all the future projects you will definitely, come up on. But can you tell us, can you plug anything here today? What exciting projects we can look out from you, and where we can find you on social media?
Okay. So, I mean, I'm a very interesting kind of director in that I am not advertising myself because I don't feel like I'm worthy of being advertised yet. I do have Instagram, but if you look at it, nothing about it shows that I'm a director, which is very interesting because that's not what I think Instagram is for. It's for everyone to flex and pretend they're something they're not. So I'm like, I don't have my work on Instagram, and I don't have a website set up because, again, I want to have the work behind my back to prove myself. I'm not going to have an empty website that's making me feel like I am not doing enough at the ripe old age of 25 years young. So
I totally
would say that
understand that.
there's stuff to look out for from me. I'm putting out a bunch of shorts this year, and I'll obviously like let you know, Kel, like when they come out, so that you can, we can talk about it on your podcast or anything like that. But I have a couple coming out, something called a texting series, which is going to be a very interesting deep dive into the way that the texting universe works. It's very immersive, and it kind of shows you what's going on inside of like our phones while we're talking to each other, and how much is missed in group conversations and in friendly conversations, things that are just being miscommunicated. It's a very almost sci-fi deep delve into that, and there's going to be a lot of stuff based on the Turing test that I'm going to put out, a feature film potentially, and a short to kind of prep that, which is going to be really interesting. And I'm going to be putting into festivals as well. But the biggest, I think, is my self-proclaimed feature film about my life, and I've titled it Sing Like Her at this moment, and it's going to be based on my life and what it was like to be born as me, because it was very unorthodox the way that I happened upon this world. So I feel like I really want to share that story, and that's going to be my rosebud. That's going to be my driving force, and it's going to be the thing that makes me. So that, I think, is going to come out hopefully in 3 years. You know what, I'm just declaring it at this point. It's coming out in 3 years. I have a producer to pitch it to, and a million other things to plan, but it's going to be my thing. So I'll let you know as soon as that's solidified as well. But I mean, like, I have Instagram. It's Olympia_Jasmine, JAZMYN. If anyone wants to check it out, it's nothing interesting. It's just my face a lot of the time. But my work is, when it's worthy of an audience, it will come out. But I will not ever put out mediocrity just for the sake of saying I'm a director, and so that people recognize. I think the people who know me know that I'm gonna do this, and when I do it, I'm gonna do it in a bang. I'm not just gonna. There's no little fanfare before it happens. It's gonna shock you and awe you, and then just kind of continue on that path for the rest of my career.
That's awesome. I love that outlook. And is there any way that the viewers and listeners of this podcast can support you as a filmmaker in the meantime while all these things are in the works?
Honestly, right now, I think that the only way to support me is to help me build the team that I need. I think that spreading the things that I have talked about with you is the most important thing, because when I create my company, which is my dream, that is my baby, I've been thinking about it for years now. When I create that, I'm going to be hiring hundreds of people. And I don't care if you went to film school, and I don't care what your background did. It's about having a similar outlook that I have on life, and being ready to comfortably have that in front of the entire world. So I think that just having people open their minds and spread that open-mindedness, so that when I open my doors to my company and I am like, come through, they are ready. Because people who can't get on board this ship will simply, they can't board. That's simply it. So the only thing anyone can do right now is just be ready to be part of my team, either by working in my company or just by being a part of my core group of supporters. Like, I will feel it. I feel it in the energy. I know everyone who supports me, and I feel all of their auras on me, and that is what keeps me going. So, like, literally, financially, or in terms of social media, there's nothing I need right now. I'm a very intrinsic person. I just need those people to be ready, because we're forming an army, and we're gonna revamp Hollywood, whether they like it or not.
Amazing. Well, I have my combat boots on. I'm ready to go. I think that the listeners and viewers of this podcast can also agree. Olympia, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an awesome conversation. I'm so excited for everyone to hear all the knowledge that you dropped today. You are a visionary in and of itself, and I'm so excited to see what you do. So again, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Of course. All right. As usual, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see y'all in the next episode. Bye.